Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Phil. I am the Down Under Maker. How is everybody this morning? Um, it's been a couple of days, well, I think it's 2 weeks since we streamed last. I was sick, kids have been sick. It's been a whole mess here. I'm just changing something around on my third screen, so bear with me. It's doing strange things. We've got Raj and Greenie in the chat for sure. Let me get rid of that echo. There we go. That's all fixed. So, what are we doing today? In a nutshell, my Voron has been a bit neglected. The wiring has got messy. There's lots of random hardware been in and out of that machine for testing over the last 2 years. So, wow, you can hear me. That's good to know, Raj. Thank you. I was about to ask that in a moment. Lots of random stuff has been in and out of that machine for the last 2 years for various testing, and it just needs some love. The wiring has got out of control. It's just not very neat in there anymore. So I figured let's tidy it up and make use of this time today, because we're still killing time waiting for Index. There's still no official, we're shipping it notifications. So, oh, LTX, good morning. And Steve 3D Builder, hello. So yeah, we're going to be working on getting that all sorted out and tidied up. It's going to take me a few moments to drag it across to the building area. So give me a sec. I'll set you up with the camera so you can watch me struggle on the side cam, which is that one, I think. No, sorry, that one. There we go. So let's point the. That camera is playing up. Hello, that's me. That's the side cam in the middle. It's obviously doing strange things again. Let's go here. Let's go back to me for a second, so you can actually see me. There we go. So yeah, is it that one? Should be that one. Properties. No, it's not that one. Sorry, guys. That was the one. What we do is we change it from that one to that one. And then we change it back again. And there we go. It's back. It just does strange things sometimes. So let's now put it on that one so you can watch me struggle. Let's get rid of the IPA before I accidentally get that all over my panels and make them even worse than they already are. Go away. Network cables. We might do some network crimping. Because the network cable that's built into the back skirts on this thing is, that's leaning on something. Yeah, the network cable is currently set up for a Raspberry Pi 4 in the middle of the electronics bay, and the Pad 5 v2 that we're going to be swapping into this is going to be at the front. No idea what that was. It might have been a PTFE sheet, but it just fell on the floor with a crash. That's box turtle wiring, I think. No, that's the link for the CAN bus. That's more PTFE sheets moving. Behold the mess that is my wiring. So now we've been doing that, a few more people have rocked up. We've got Gergman here, we've got LTX here, we've got Steve 3D Builder, Brad's turned up. We're missing a bunch of the usuals, but I think there's somebody else still streaming, so maybe they're over there. So what we've got, U2C, which we're probably going to reclaim because the Pad 5 has CAN bus. Raspberry Pi 4, which we can definitely just pull out because it's not been used for months. A whole mess of wiring and randomness. So yeah, we're going to tidy all this up, hopefully, and make it a little bit easier for me to manage. And we have a USB hub, which we're probably going to replace with the K hub that we looked at a few weeks ago. So yeah, let's wiggle this around a bit so that there's a bit more view. There we go. And I'll try not to get in front of the camera too much. 350s are biggies, yeah. It's a big printer to manage and tip over. What I've got is, for those of you who don't know, let me tip this up just slightly so you can see. I have an IKEA Alex drawer, the wide one. It's not as tall as the skinny one, but it's easier for what I'd use it for. And then that's 3D printed risers. And this is an offcut of the cupboard doors that I've got here. So it all matches and it's all decor matched. And this is a panel of also the same stuff that used to be in the kitchen. So when we had the kitchen modified to accommodate an extra oven, there was a couple of drawers we had to take out, and it was exactly the right width. So I just melded it all together. Tulsa, hello. Did my kid wire that? No, I did lots and lots and lots of different times with lots and lots of different beta projects, and as a result, it's a mess and we need to tidy it up. That's why we're here. Does the Pad 5 replace the Pi? Yes, it does, LTX. So we'll get to that in a few minutes, because what we're going to do is we're going to find where I've put the old Pad 5 that was on here, the prototype, with the shiny new replacement that Big Tree Tech were good enough to send me, because basically I have a Raspberry Pi CM5 that's completely, well, it's not completely unusable, but it's all but unusable. Let me see if I can lock that from zooming. Yeah, it's all but unusable because I can't flash it at the moment, because the OTG port, the programming port for the eMMC memory on board, it fell off, which it's not unusual for prototypes like this to have those kind of issues, because they're hand built in a hurry to get them out to testers, and sometimes shortcuts get taken. So in a nutshell, over here is the front, so you guys know the orientation. Over here is the back. This is where the power cord port is here. That's where the network port and where I've run all my USB, etc. cables out. And yeah, so as we go, I'll try and keep everything all easy to manage. And there's the Meet 2. Gesture control is all off, according to OBSBot Center. Unless it's that one. It might be the auto framing, which I've just disabled. Okay, so it doesn't appear to be doing anything except autofocus, so we should be good now. So let's start by unwiring stuff, and we'll progress slowly from there, I think. So I have a pass-through network port here in the skirt, which unfortunately is a dark color, so it's a bright white color against the black, which makes it easy to spot, but not easy to hide. So that is the CAN bus port. I'm just going to feed that out through here if I can. It doesn't fit. Let's deal with this network cable first, so we can free some space. That is a RGB lighting. Right. 1, to... Well, that USB can be unplugged from wherever it's going because it's not been doing anything for a while, so... And that's actually just taped to the back of the machine. And I'm going to pull that through the socket for a second because behind the machine has got just as bad of a spaghetti as inside the machine at this point. Let's put that there. That is the 24 volt power for the internal lights. So that needs to be rerun somewhere, and thinner cable used probably, because that's way too fat. So we'll work that out. That is the MCU board USB. Let's have a look at chat while waiting. Steve would be proud of you with the wire management. Steve would not be proud of me. Steve's probably going if he's getting to watch this as a pod. Oh, that wasn't so great. I've just accidentally broken that. Oh well, I printed another couple of these, so hopefully I can replace that if I need it. No. The other thing that I've done this week is I've wrestled very hard with my Prusa Core 1. Why have I been wrestling with it, you ask? That is an extension lead, so that can just move over there for a minute. Actually, let's put it all in one big pile and we can come back to it. I've been wrestling very hard with my Prusa because I've been trying to print... Sorry, you brought up the subject of Steve. I've been trying to print out a Down Under Maker modified version of Steve's tools, parts holder. And during printing the koala bit, I grabbed what I thought was silver ABS. It turned out it was silver PLA on an ABS print with ABS temperatures. And it made messes inside the extruder. It actually, because of the fact the whole of the inside of the extruder is metal, heat moves around in there, and the big drive wheel that it uses, it was so hot it actually melted the PLA around it, so it was a sticky PLA goop all the way around the drive gear, and yeah, it stopped extruding, and then all sorts of other strange things started happening. And it took me quite a while to be able to take that apart and put it all back together. I did most of it during David at Arma 3D stream the other day. So what are we looking at here? There's the U2C. We'll leave that in place for now because I don't know how easy it is to swap the Pad 5 over to CAN bus at this point. I did try it previously and it worked, but that was talking directly to an EBB board and not the craziness that I've got going on here. I'm just trying to find what I did with the old Pad 5. It's here somewhere. Because on it, sorry, I did a lot of tidying up over the last few days to give myself plenty of room. And in doing that, I know where it is. It's in a box. It's in its box. So it's probably in one of these Big Tree Tech boxes in my drawer here. Not that one. Not that one. That one. That is the 5 volt power for the Raspberry Pi /CM5 / whatever. That's the MCU board USB. That is a temperature sensor of some kind, I believe, or an end stop maybe. That's the sex bolt. So if I can manage that out of the way somewhere, that's probably going to be a good idea. We'll double check that in the config before we do anything though. That is some wires that got tidied up a bit. at some stage, but not very well. And that is one of these fans that got unplugged for some reason. So we're going to need to look at that. Other than the rest of that, it's not as bad as I kind of vaguely remembered it being. It could do with more tidying up, but it is not as bad as... So what have I got to help tidy this up? I've been on printables and I was looking around for something to do cable management. Florida man checking in. Hi, John. Just checking. So I did have a poll up. Let's see what the poll results were. Will it load the poll? 29% is saying strawberry. End poll. Here we go. 29% said strawberry, 29% said mango, 29% said coffee, and 13% chocolate. That surprises me. I would have thought coffee and chocolate would have won personally, but then again, you lot are weirdos, so. Quick coffee, because it's, what time is it now? It's 3:15 in the morning. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to remove the CM5 off the old pad 5, swap the CM5 onto the new pad 5. Then we're going to need to get all that operational and go from there. Move these parts trays out of the way for a minute. The other thing we've got, when I was sent my Vivid for testing, Big Tree Tech were a little confused why it was just not performing like they expected. It turns out I was sent the buffer unit. Let's go back to here. The buffer unit, the one that's on the machine right now, is an old one. It was one that I wasn't supposed to be testing. I was supposed to be testing this version. And that's why I was having so much difficulty with it, and why they were confused about the differences between their unit and what I was getting as a result. So they changed the internal geometry, which meant that the plunger moves more freely in this one. And yeah, so hopefully that's all sorted out. So let's very gently turn this around so it doesn't go into a panic. Grab that box of beta gear I can't show you. Which one's which? It's easy to spot. That's the new one. So quick refresher about how the pad 5 works. Perfectly operational pad 5. Except that is the USB port there that's missing. That allows you to program the eMMC, the onboard storage on the Raspberry Pi. You can't use any other kind of storage except the eMMC on a CM5 if it's eMMC equipped. It's just the way they're designed. There must be some sort of technological limitation, which means they have to do it that way. But you can't just put in, apologies, you can't just put in a micro SD. It won't work. So I'm going to put that on there so it doesn't scratch the screen and scuff the screen. Actually, let's go now to that one. And the 2 wires soldered to it, that was because normally you would power it via the OTG port. And of course you can't do that if there's no OTG port. So I soldered those to the back of the GPIO to bypass the limitations of the pins, because it's the pin itself that is current limited. but the way Big Tree Tech have implemented this bit on the back, they're nice and big and fat. So the back of the socket I could solder to and get the necessary amps, because these things can pull up to 5 amps. And if you don't give it all that, it gets voltage drop and then strange things happen. So this is the new version. Oh, let's put that onto camera. Can we zoom in a little? Probably not easily. So let's swap it back to the side cam. Just to spot the difference. Okay, so spot the difference. All the changes that got made. We've gone to backwards pointing USB-A, backwards pointing full size HDMI from the micro, a backwards pointing USB type, a USB 3 port, which replaces the outwards pointing one, and an inboard pointing OTG port, which has freed up a little bit of board real estate so they can move things around. Avocado pits wasn't an option. Brad. What MCU board do I have in this printer? It's the Octopus Pro. The old version of the Pro, not the H72, whatever it is, 723. So yeah, a whole bunch of these ports have been swapped around to give us internal pointing ports. Now, the other thing they've done is they've changed over some of these USB ports to be a different format. I forget what the format is, but that's a heavy-duty USB port. So yeah, and CAN bus port hasn't changed, LAN port hasn't changed, and I need to swap the battery out for the real-time clock into the new unit. So let's go back to the overhead. There. That's better. And let's do it nice and straight so it doesn't play with people's OCD. What we've got to do is we've got to transplant the heatsink and CM5 over to here. And on the original prototype, they supplied Phillips head screws, which we bitterly complained about. So hopefully on the production versions, they've addressed that. Sorry, I'm just off screen grabbing a suitable Phillips head screwdriver. Hopefully. And I'll grab that one and that one just in case. There we go. Now, I can post links to this CM5 cooler later if anybody is looking at getting one. They're kind of hard to find and they're kind of expensive too. But this is the best one I've found for active cooling. There is a passive cooling version that I've seen, and somebody actually posted to the Big Tree Tech Facebook page basically a mini computer based on the CM5 and the Raspberry Pi 5, which looked like a decent project, but he used passive cooling, and I suspect if he's not careful, he's going to run into issues with. Now I'm just going to very gently get under the fan here. Actually, I'm going to go under the edge of the CM5. Now you can't just rip these straight off the board because you'll break the socket. So you have to be very gentle No, that's my scalpel. I'm looking for my ceramic tweezers. Well, that's been off for a couple of weeks, so it shouldn't matter. Let's just be safe about this. Let's remove all voltages from the board. So I've popped the real-time clock battery out. Let's finish taking these screws out to be sure that they're all the way out. One. Two. Three. Four. Let's very gently remove. I was hoping not to have to do this, but that's the heat sink. There we go. One. Two. Both popped at the same time. So let's very carefully transplant that across. Now, did they do what I asked with the stenciling? Yes, they did. Okay. Let's just examine something that I couldn't show you guys when I did the tour of this. Can you guys see that it says Big Tree Tech Pad 5 V2 this way? The Raspberry Pi stencil text is the other orientation. And to reduce the risk of people doing dumb things, as you can see here, that's been swapped around. It's been rotated so that it points that way. So the text here matches this. So it's less likely to confuse people and get them to plug it in the wrong way around. Pop, pop. So that's the sort of little fine details that we try and pick up during beta testing. That's screwing in just until it's barely twist tight. And Raspberry Pi's guide last time I checked, which was a little while ago, to admit, said to do diagonals for the screws. Rod, hello. I'm trying my best to keep up with chat a bit more regularly. So I've got it right in my face with a giant window of chat. So why move to the Raspberry Pi on the pad? Basically, this is the fastest Raspberry Pi I have because it's a CM5. And I'm hoping to start testing something which is going to actually need the Pad 5, a Pi 5 class SBC very shortly. So something is coming, nothing to do with Big Tree Tech, but it's going to want the horsepower of a Raspberry Pi 5. Pop that plug in. Now that's the 4-pin fan for the cooler. So one is taco, one is PWM signal to actually pulse the fan. So that's why it's 4 wires. Just double checking everything. That's there, that's there. We've not put in the battery, so let's put that in. And we'll probably need to reprogram that. So we'll grab that instruction in a few minutes. So I think I've got everything transferred. Don't have a heat sink. To my box of very, very many. No. There we go. No, strictly speaking, this heatsink isn't necessary, but the USB controller does get very warm, so. Giving it a little bit of extra love is not going to hurt. Sorry, the South Bridge, not the USB controller. Now, that can go over there. And we may revisit this Pad 5 in a few weeks once my hot air station turns up, if it ever turns up, and actually install a replacement Type-C port on there. That, I believe, is empty. Yeah. So, just in case the Big Tree Tech Beta rep is watching, thank you for helping me out with this, because, yeah, it made it very difficult to use the CM5. And he's got a bit of a promotion for the business out of it too by me doing this. So, all good. Everybody wins. Just having a look. Nick, hello. The truth is, Phil keeps frying everything due to static electricity. See his hair as evidence. My hair's not too bad today, man. I've had it cut a couple of weeks ago. So he needs new gear. Yeah, okay, Nick. So, that's there. Now, a major question is, will the old mounts work? And no. This was a concern I had when they said they were doing all this. By having all these backwards pointing ports, let's turn this around so you can see. All these backwards pointing ports are directly between the... No, look at that one, Phil. All these ports point backwards directly between the mounting points. So the existing design doesn't work. I just need to change a screen that's going on here so I can't see that. That's better. So that makes life a little difficult. So I'm going to need to redesign my mounts, which are a remix of somebody else's mounts, which are a remix of somebody else's mounts. I'd already knew it was probably a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remix these so that they look like this. And they're going to have a little triangle, which points out here to actually intercept the mounts there and there. Actually, there and there is the right way around. And that means I'm going to have to also adjust it ever so slightly for the LAN port there. Well, maybe not. But yeah, it's going to need some reimagination with this mount. So can I do it that way? Will that? No, still going to conflict there. That would work, but I'm going to have access to that USB port then. Although I don't really need it. I'll work it out. So what that means is we're not going to be able to fully mount this up today onto the printer, but that's a project for during the week for me to redesign that. It's not that big of a deal. So that's ready to actually mount. What we will do is we will find my Type-C tail that I had sitting here. Now, a lot of you know and have heard me wax evangelical about it. I hate people powering their high-end Raspberry Pis via the GPIO port because it's not designed for it. The way these are designed to be powered is via their USB OTG port, and they're designed when in operation to need up to 5 amps. These pins on most configurations are only capable of about 1.2 amps each. So you get very quickly going to run out of 5-volt pins if you can't double them up and triple them up, and there's just not enough of them to do it. So yeah, you end up with a shortfall, and then you end up with under voltage errors and all sorts of other strange things going on. So, oh, JPP's here. Hello. So yeah, always power these things properly. You can get away with it on the Raspberry Pi 3 because its design was semi-set up for powering it over GPIO. We then got lazy and kept that legacy alive with no thought for the fact that things change. Current draws have gone up significantly. Now, the insulation accidentally got stripped off this last time. I'm just trying to fix this. There we go. God, just made it worse. Okay, so what I'm going to need to do is very carefully strip this insulation off. Let's just... Is that zoomed in? No, not zoomed in. That's not even set right. I've just realized that my chat hasn't been populating on screen, so bear with me a sec. Just fix that up. You guys didn't remind me. There we go. Caleb's here too. Hello, Caleb. So, got myself distracted. Nick powers his Raspberry Pi via AC. Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. I've seen that guy in action. So, Pi 5. Let's see if we can properly strip this wire without doing any mischief. That's better. Hands plus me, that one. All nicely stripped. In fact, let's strip it back just a little bit more, because we've got plenty of slack. So there we go. I'm doing this on screen as much as I can. Now I think my overhead boom has sagged just slightly. I might need to readjust that. So that's all there, that's all there. That is connected to those wires there, which connects to there. So that's going to have to be done in machine, which is going to be a bit painful, I think, but we'll get there. So that's the power for the Raspberry Pi 5. That needs to get managed underneath and to here. Now, I don't endorse using our side cutter snips for stripping wire, but snipping between the strands is convenient, easy, and it's not going to damage them. So one, two. Now, I spent all that money on that shiny new soldering station. So let's move it across here. Where did I put its power cord though? I set up so much stuff last night, got it all ready to go, and then I realized I've missed a whole bunch of other things. There's its power cord. That's not its power cord, but it's compatible. So we'll go with it for now. Sorry, I know I've just bumped the camera while I was doing this. Get out of the way, Phil. That's pointing in slightly the wrong direction. Very gently slide that backwards. Okay, so let's power up the soldering station. There we go. A little spot of water on the sponge. Now, while we're waiting for that to sort itself out, just going to mute myself. Okay, that's better. Just grab some heat shrink. That one, actually that's already pre-cut. And some of that. Put that in that slot. Then we want something nice and big and chunky all the way around it to protect it, which is probably overkill. That one. We're also going to want to turn on the power for the hot air gun. So where are we at? We have the soldering iron set up. We're going to need some solder. And because we all enjoy teasing our good friend David, Armor 3D printing, a tiny little bit of flux on each of these wires to aid the tinning, and because he objects to flux for some bizarre reason. One, two. Plug it in, plug it in, plug it in. Flux, yes. Okay, so that's all ready to go. That's all set. Let's set that to 350. That's all set up. Now, the reason I'm going over this all ahead of time is I just want to make sure I get it right first time and not have to come back and repeat this. Now, threading on the final cover of the heat shrink all the way back here, so I can't accidentally shrink it onto the wires early. I don't have red in this size, but yellow will do. I probably should have fluxed after doing this bit, but that's not the end of the world. So this is going to kind of suck to do it this way, I think. Let's find something to support that. Hemostats. That will do. Somewhere in screen. That'll do. So let's tuck that out of the way so it's less distracting. That should hopefully be in the middle of screen. That's all there, that's all there. Got my solder. Now, off screen I have a spool on a roller. So that's what I've just grabbed. Soldering tip is up to temp. Some nice clean solder on it just to keep it pretty. And let's tin these wires. Now I have a small dispute with the seller about the tips that were sent for the soldering iron, which is kind of sort of resolved. I'm just going to do the Type-C tail off screen because it's just easier for me. He's agreed to send me some extra tips because the listing said I should have had an assortment of tips that and different shapes, and he supplied me all with chisel tips. Now, I'm just tidying up these wires because they were deliberately too long, and just to make them a bit more appropriately lengthed. Wait, that's already back at temperature. I love how fast this iron is. One. Done. Pull that heat shrink back. Yes, it is the Pad 5 V2, Caleb. Now, this machine had before was the prototype because I was on the beta test for it. This wire is a bit too long to make it convenient. It's a bit flexy. Two. So I'm just going to mute you guys. Sorry guys, that wasn't working. It was too far away from the heat gun. The cable's not quite long enough. So I've just rearranged everything. Let's give that another try. Muting for a moment. Okay, I'm back. Hopefully I had most of that in view while I was doing it. It's kind of hard to do all of that all at once and keep it on screen. So that's all heat shrinked up. Let's very carefully push this back out of the way. That. Now, while I've got this out, because I'm trying to take care of these tips, I'm just going to retin them. Now, I said when I did the unboxing that it's really important to do this. Just leave a little bit of solder on your tip after you're finished, and it prevents the magic coating on the soldering tip from oxidizing and getting damaged over time. So definitely do that. I think the chat's broken. Doesn't appear to be updating. I have 5 USB devices in the Pi with a 50-watt power supply. Wow, that's gone pretty hard. And oh yeah, Brad has the K hub coming as well, the USB hub, which I'll show you guys again because that's what I have here. Now, I printed this in for a white case last time, and it's been bugging me ever since. So what I've got off screen is I've got a black case to put onto it, and that's what we're about to do next. So let's turn that camera around. Let's move the working pad 5 off screen. All those screwdrivers over there out of the way, ready to be tidied up. Hemostats back in their spot. Oh, speaking of, I'm in the process of working out a new means of storing all my tools. And this is actually designed for soldering tips. So all the tips that I got the other day, etc., they are all designed to go into, there we go, into these holes. But I found that it's also really awesome for my screwdrivers. It's just the right depth. They're all the right width. It just works. So I'm in the process of doing a remix of this. So it's going to have a strip for, let's go over here. That's probably better. I'm going to do it so it's got a strip for the tweezers and hemostats and etc. Have a strip for the screwdrivers and another strip for soldering tips. And then probably another strip of tweezers and stuff on the other end, because it's just so convenient and it's got a little bit of heft to it, so it doesn't really want to fall over. I am probably going to get rid of that taper because it's not as stable backwards rolling as is forwards, but it's a really nice setup and I quite like it. So I'm gonna fix this and make it a bit more my own. There we go. So let's tilt this down again. I need to find a slightly better short tripod, I think. But yeah, so they'll fit. Now, the reason for the remix is I want to make it so the screwdrivers all fit in one line, because at the moment they have to be offset. But yeah, it's working for me. So once I've got that all remixed, I'll post that as well. And the other thing I will post is the 3MF4 koala parch tray, just so you guys can be dumb like me. And we'll go from there. I'm going to put in some DUM text in one of the tray ports as well. Now, I'm going to do 2 versions. I'm going to do a MMU version and just a layer change version. So by layer change, I mean at a new layer, it will pause. You can swap the filament and then change the colors, which is why, if you have a look closely, there's a couple of bands in here to match the color swaps. So first things first, we need to grab my 2mm and my 3mm and strip this down. Jeff, hello. Mike, hello. Anybody else I've missed coming in recently? Hello. So that's loose. That's right. This was also those awful Phillips heads. I just tidied up those screwdrivers there. Unplug this. I just saw my good tweezers. There we go. I saw that trick the other day. Let me explain to you what I've just done. Let's get a blank JST to do it though. So no, that's microfits. JSTs. 2-pin JST there. No, that's more microfits. 2-pin JST, there we go. Let's pick a blue one just to contrast. So I'm going to plug this in. And let's go to the only this one. If you have some nice metal tweezers that are bent, you can actually get underneath and rock and see how easy that is to actually remove. So you can do it the other way too if you want to. Get them underneath the edge and rock. And that is far less likely to do damage to your plugs and your ports. I was watching I'm not even remember which one, but a channel which was showing hot air soldering techniques. And they showed that. And I was like, I'm going to do that because that works. So that is the K-Hub hardware. Jeff's just saying hi. Now, Raj, thank you very much. Everybody, we're looking for parity. Although, having said that, Raj, it might be me because I have the stream running over here so I can monitor what's going on. So that extra like might be me. So let's like myself. I like myself today. I've already liked myself, so it's not me. So somebody hasn't hit like, and I'm guessing it's Jeff because that's the sort of guy he is. So that is the end mount version. So it's designed so you can screw it down there and there. But I've got DIN rails in this unit, so DIN rails. What did I do with those parts I printed there? I think that's going to go. They all point the same way. I think that makes sense to go that way. Which means that needs to go that way. All right. Sorry guys, what I was doing was just making sure before I put this on that I had the most logical orientation for the DIN mount. Now I seem to recall these being M2s. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the time to swap out all of these screws. Bear with me while I have a quick cough. Jeff claims that he has actually liked my stream. Now, you guys may or may not have noticed that Jeff and I kind of had this little competition to say who was first to like a stream. It's almost always me, because he forgets to actually hit the like. One. I'm doing this a little bit off screen. Let's move that camera that way a little. It's not going to be square with the edge, but it's going to be easier for me to stay underneath it. And if the weirdo who likes feet is in the chat, I'm sure they will get some fun from it. So that's all nicely installed. Now the tolerances on this part are pretty tight, but not normally this tight. Have I got some sort of a... Thumbs down still counts towards engagement metrics. Thanks, Gergman. Please don't do that. I think I might have not printed this with exactly the right profile, because this is a tight fit. I'm just using the edge of the clippers to see if we can find any. Oh, there's a little bit. Any over extrusion or any wisps that are causing interference, because this is way tighter than it should be. And I printed from these models before, so it's not the model itself. It must have been a print setting. Or I've used it with a filament I haven't tested it with previously. One of the two. That's a little better. We need to find some hate watchers to boost Phil's numbers. We're not actually beta testing anything at the moment, Alex. We're, speaking of which, hello. We're basically undoing a whole bunch of the slackness of me quickly throwing beta test hardware into this machine. I'm going to grab something I can do a little bit of flexing with. That one. We're undoing all of the mess I make during beta testing on this machine. We're tidying up the wiring. And fitting a replacement pad 5. Because the original version was a prototype and it had some problems. That's just not fitting. Now that's the original prototype shell version, and that just fits. Let's go with that. This was a hybrid design. So what this has got is this has got two big fat mounting lugs and the DIN mounting. But the DIN mounting's not in the right spots. That's the old DIN mounting, so that's not going to work well either. There's a little bit of... Ow! That screwdriver just landed right on my toe. It has to be exhausting. Sometimes it is, because sometimes they throw 3 or 4 tests at you at once, and you've got to get all of those turned around in the timeline that they want. And sometimes you've got a couple of different companies send you tests all at the same time. So you've got to get that all done. Because normally when you're doing this sort of testing, you have 2, maybe 3 weeks of test window before you have to get your report back. So that can mean burning midnight oil to get it done. Now, the Vivid was a different experience because that was a very long-term test. Does it fit now? That's a lot closer. Just there, needs a little bit more love. So what I've got is a little file. I'm just cleaning up what looks like a little bit of uneven. This was printed, and this is how I realized I was having problems with the Core 1 extruder the other day. Later in this print, things got a bit lumpy. That fits that way. It fits there. Yeah, this isn't going to work. It's just not fitting. So let's pick up my drop screwdriver and the drop screw before I stand on them and see if we can come up with an alternative method. I could never find time to beta test. I want them to send me everything after Phil has fixed it, though. Yeah, fair. How can I do this? What I propose I do is I'm going to mount it using a single. Now, I seem to recall vaguely that we had a similar issue when we first did this and I had to modify the original case. Just coming back to me. I'm going to put a single screw in there. Ooh, that's not going to work either. I'm going to have to go back to this crappy Phillips heads if I do that. That's the, now I remember, sorry. Having done so many tests, sometimes they kind of blur into each other. Let me explain the process. So, this is the original beta test version. I never used these holes because we realized very quickly that they weren't deep enough to make sure that they didn't conflict with these solders. So that version, I only ever used VHB tape, and VHB taped it to the back of this one for testing. They then went back and changed it so that there's now this design, which is the DIN mount version, and this design, which is the end mount version. And as you can see, compared to, well, you might be able to see, the recesses here are much, much deeper to make sure that the screws have no chance of coming into contact with the circuit board. I reckon that is about 1.5 millimeter recess, and this is a 3 millimeter recess. So that's what's going on. And it's all starting to come back to me. LTX is back. Hello, LTX. LTX is welcoming everybody. We'll say hi to everybody. So yeah, just let me go through this, see if there's another way we can deal with this. We could just get happy with the side cutters. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to fix this off screen. Where are we? 4:11 my time. And for those of you who are new to the channel, that's 4:11 a.m. I teach science and engineering as my day job, and I have 2 small children. So the only time I get to stream when is actually suitable for most people to see is the middle of the night my time. Well, the very early hours of the morning at least. So I've just got hacktastic with the side cutters here. That's much closer. It's so close to fitting. And that's in, that's in. That's in. There we go. Okay, that's all well and good having fitted it. I've now got to prise it out again, very gently. Flathead screwdriver, there we go. Now, let's just redouble check this. That goes that way. That goes that way. $6.12 on the wrong side of Australia. Sorry, Jeff. 2:12 in the morning for Raj. Oh, sorry, no, 9:12 p.m. And it's 4 p.m. on the east coast of the US. So 1 screw in. 2 screws in. That's a fan screw. That's the missing M2. Just get rid of some of those plastic shavings. So we've got all that in place now. That's slotted in. Very gently press that in. That should be good. Now, top half. That's sitting very high still. There we go. There we go. Not as pretty as it could be. Now, you may have noticed the print quality on this isn't the prettiest. I'm not taking the bag for this. This was a Victory Tech print. They have a farm of test printers that they test their parts on, and some of them aren't very well dialed in. One. Doing things the right way, diagonally opposed. No, doesn't matter on plastic parts, but if you always do it, then you'd get it right when you need to do it. Down on the maker, thanks for sending over the Delta Flyer, it's great. RJ's not here, man. Thank me when he's around. Speaking of which, he is conspicuous by his absence. Oh no, he's there. He's further up. Sorry, RJ, I missed you coming in earlier. So I've only actually got one beta test going on at the moment, but I've got a couple more coming. So that's one of the reasons for getting this all done, is to clear the decks, as it were. I just realized I've just put the cover on, but I haven't actually put the plug in for the fan. Let's take this all apart again. Existentially, are any of us really here? Is this the Matrix, Gergman? Is that what you're alluding to? RJ's currently doing 1,000,000 miles an hour down the Florida freeway. Now, somebody has just tagged me in rapid succession 5 or 6 times on Discord, so please bear with me, because if they're doing it much, it might be something urgent. No. Now, the something else I should mention is that this is a prototype of the K-Hub, so it's ever so slightly different to the production version. You will not be getting a red JST socket. That's something I did myself, because originally the wire management had the cable running externally for the fan, and that sucked. So a few of the testers decided to give it a try and remix it and move the JST so it pointed upwards rather than outwards. And the solution worked much better, so they adjusted it. One. Other than that, the board is exactly the same. It's just that you will probably end up with either a white or a black JST socket. And that is that size. Typing while driving, he wants a Darwin Award. $17 cheeseburgers per bowl. Oh, we're talking about American Freedom Units now. Okay, so that's in place, that's in place. Last two bottom screws. Now this case isn't the exact right one for the remix, so I'm just going to go with it because I know full well that me having problems with one fit, the other fit's going to be rubbish too. And I don't want to waste any more of you guys' time with me futzing around with this silly stuff when it's just a cover. So there we go, K-Hub, all in its nice little box, little fan on the top. Quick reminder for anybody who hasn't seen this before, USB data goes in here, 24 volt power goes in here, and that gives you 4 USB 2 outputs here for things like MCU boards and CAN bus breakout and all that sort of stuff. So that is going to go. Let's turn this camera around so you guys can see. Luke, hello. We're just installing a Pad 5 V2, hopefully, and a K-Hub. Now that can now slide away from the edge a bit because I'm not using any of the ports on this side. In fact, we might not end up using this at all. The U2C, I mean. Plug that in down there. Now there's absolutely nothing in this cable raceway, so what I might do is, I know there is some stepper motor wires. Let's not make life difficult. Let's keep those two separate. That is a what is that? That might be a grounding strap, I think. I should change that to a yellow. Okay, so that's all done. Let's get a tie strap. Where are my tie straps? Zip ties. The LDO bag of many, many rainbow colors that I'm still working through from the box turtle. Now, we may eventually swap this USB connection out completely and get rid of the U2C, but not today. We're not going to have time. So that's all tied in there. So that's there, that's there. Let's trim that off. Now, the next step will be, we need to just make sure that that cabling is long enough for the Pad 5. Just double check. Luke, brand new Pad 5 V2. This is a non-prototype. This is actually a production version. So that has plenty of cable and slack. Yep, so that's definitely going to reach. Now, while we are here, let's just quickly break that. And I set aside some filament especially for this. Now, why do I use brightly colored filament for my hinges? So I remember it's there. So that's all there. Now, the next thing we need to do is work out this network cable connection from here to here. So we have a couple of options. Now, one of my other side hustles is I do home automation for a couple of builders and anybody who will pay me, basically, using a product called Clipsal C-Bus. Clipsal Snyder is a Australian/German company, I believe. And they make a product which does CAN bus automation for the whole house. I've shown you guys a few times my C-Bus gear. Basically, it's CAN bus that connects all your light switches and a whole bunch of dimmers and relays to run your whole home. And as a result, I have network testers and all sorts of other cool stuff just sitting here ready to use. Now, the LAN port still points outboard, so we're not going to want a big fat boot on it. That's there. I'm just going through all my kit off screen. That's going to fit. So what I've been using up to now is just an RJ45 pass-through. What I'm planning to do is replace that with a crimp down and a cable and a plug to go into the pad 5, which will effectively make this just an extension lead, which is a bit more modular, in my opinion. So got all that. Oh, I might need that in a minute too. And I'll grab the punch down just in case, but I shouldn't need it for what I'm doing. Right, that's all that. So, Cat5 cable, where did I put it? There. Now, some of you are going to be nerds like me and will have done this before. Some of you won't be nerds, so I'm going to cover this as if you're not nerds, and we'll go from there. So, network cable is made up of 8 wires, 4 twisted pairs. So what that means is there's inside a whole bunch of wires, and in lots of 2 they're twisted together. What that does is it generates something called an impedance, which helps balance out electrical interference and effectively cancel it. Okay, so we have white and green, white and brown, white and orange, white and blue. There's 2 wiring standards for these sockets. And you need to remember to match them. So it doesn't matter which way you do this. You can do either type A or type B, as long as both ends match. Because if they don't match, you end up with what's called a crossover cable, and all sorts of craziness ensues. So we need to pick a lane and go with it. Just reminding myself which way around it is. We are going to go with B. Okay, so it's a while since I've used these sockets, so I'm just making sure I get all of this right. Now, the important thing to remember with these twisted pairs is you need to not untwist them. I repeat, don't untwist them. So that goes that way, that goes that way. So that means I need, this is really tiny. Type B, I need orange there. So the more you untwist them, the more you expose the connections to interference. So keeping them as twisted as possible, as long as possible, is the best possible method. So that one and that one go there. JPP doesn't turn 40 for another couple of months. Which surprises me, because I've seen that guy. He looks like he's had a tough life. Just joking, man. Because orange is there, green goes there. Which leaves us with only blue and white to go. Now, I don't do an awful lot of network crimping anymore. I have subbies that do that when I do my home automation. So that's all punched in. Now we need to cut all those off with my crappy side cutters. Good job I double checked, that's not quite right. Doing this very carefully because now I could end up having to redo everything if I don't watch what I'm doing. Double check that. White, white, blue, blue, brown, brown. Yep. I'm going to show you guys. This is what I describe as the Creality style, because this is the style that normally comes with Creality. And this is the knockoff Platos. I find that the knockoff Platos, the cutters never quite line up and the tips always break off. So I've stopped using them for 3D printing and I just use them for trimming off wire tails and stuff now. So now that I've done all that, we can squeeze that together, and that is one solid, hopefully, wiring connection. So that now fits in there. And we need to work out the best way to run this, and hopefully as far away from as many electrical noise issues as possible. So we want to keep it as away from as much of the mains wiring as possible. And ideally you'd run it away from the stepper motor cabling as well. But that ain't going to happen because there's too many stepper motors in this damn thing. Now, this is what they call Cat 5 cable. There's also Cat 6 cable, Cat 6, and there's also Cat 5A and B cable. The difference is with straight up Cat 5, and the reason I'm using it here is it's only capable of 100 megabit in reality. Over short distances, it might negotiate up to gigabit, but it's a lot more flexible than the others because the others have a plastic divider core up the middle of it, and trying to route that stuff around the inside of this printer would suck. Now we did a type B on the socket,
So we need to do Cat5e, sorry. I'm thinking of connection styles A and B. So Cat5e is what I'm thinking of. Cat 7 and 8 are also out now, but they rely on a different set of physics, and they're not twisted pairs in the conventional method. If you get one of those really flat network cables, then that is usually a cheap one, or it's Cat 7 or higher, because it uses different stuff. To quickly refresh myself, we're doing a type B, so blue in the middle. Sorry, I realized I'm doing some of this off camera. So blue is the middle. Then we want green either side of it. And then brown one side and orange the other. Now, there's lots and lots of grumpy old men in the electrical industry who say that using what we call pass-through network plugs is a bad thing. And it's mostly grumpy old curmudgeonness, nothing to do with actual whether they're good or not. There and there, that's better. Then there and there. Yeah, so it's nothing to do with whether the plugs are good or not. It's just that they figure that everybody should do the hard way like they have done for many, many decades before these kind of plugs were developed. And I'll show you the kind of plug in a minute. Just getting this all massaged into place. Now there is tools for doing this. I just have never needed to part with the cash for them. Now let's show you something. One of the safety things about the way these are designed is it should be color white, color white, color white, color white, etc. And that's one of the easy ways to tell whether you've got your wires in the right order or not. And I know that there's something not quite right because I've got two whites together, which means that orange and white pair is the backwards. There we go. Now this is fiddly, and there are faster methods for doing this. All of those bits have just gone showering across the room. That's got... Now, it used to be that you would cut it so you'd have just the right amount of wire. And then you would crimp it, and then you'd have to go through and pray that you got it all done right and everything was aligned. And you'd waste a whole bunch of plugs unless you were doing this over and over, day after day. Just muting you while I cough. But these pull-through kind means you can actually double check before you crimp. Are all my wires in the right order? Yes, 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 yes. You can see that everything is all lined up inside the plug. You know that the wires are the right length and they're all going to reach. So you can stuff it into an appropriately equipped crimper like this and go, job done. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to quickly test this. If the power's still available on my meter, I'm going to need to replace the battery in the meter, of course. It's not been used for about 2 years. Is that a 9-volt battery? Yes, it's a 9-volt battery. Don't have any of those. I know I don't, because I just did the smoke alarms the other day. So we're going to just trust that that cable works. I'm going to route it up here, down there, and out there. You still need to work out what those wires do. That must be the thermistor wires for the bed. And that tallies with where they plug in. So we're not going to mess with them. But what we will do is we'll cut that tail off the tie strap. And we will tuck them under the board because there's nothing we can do about them, and shortening them is a folly on a beta test machine. Now, my wiring requirements are different to a lot of other people's. I need a little bit of extra slack on my wires. So people like Steve, when he does his builds, he can, because he doesn't do a lot of testing as far as I know, not in the same way I do at least, his requirements are different. He's doing it for cable pawn purposes for his stream, whereas I'm doing it in a way that I can make changes if I want / need to. Now that needs to go into there. Now, this is the extra wire for that fan, and I needed to put a jumper onto that one. I'm just looking through. I need to finish labeling my drawers here. So just off screen over here, for those of you who haven't seen before, I have a big bank of parts drawers, and in it I keep all my parts, of course, that's what it's for 4 parts. And I need to finish labeling it because there's lots of parts here that don't have labels yet. So I have to drag them in and out trying to find the right. Right, found the right one. And I've got a jumper. Okay, so next we're going to need tweezers. And that is a 5-volt. What's it? There we go, 5-volt. So these fans are 24-volt fans, but I don't want them or need them to be running at a huge speed. They're just there to create a draft, basically. So what I've done is I've put the jumper in for their voltage to be 5 volts, which is enough to make them spin up, but not enough for them to make a huge amount of noise. So that's there and there. That's better. Let's trim off that tail. So next, we've got the K-hub in, we've got the U2C connected to it. We now need to run, that's not the kind of cable I want. That's the one I want, I think. Yes. Now, I was also involved in the predecessor to this version of the K-hubs testing, and I have that attached to the top of the back of my printer. And I'm going to keep it there for one very good reason. It gives me USB ports and CAN bus ports up at the back of my printer, which means if I want to or need to test any CAN bus or USB devices, I've got that readily accessible port or set of ports, and it just makes my life easy. So that's fine where it is. Now, let's take this out. Let's pivot a little bit now. Is that the right one? No, that's the 2mm. And let's mount the new buffer for the Vivid. Sorry, I know I'm off screen right now. Hi. Can just make out my hand, I think. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Gah, my masking tape's gone walkabout again. So this is the old one. Let's put this in my box of part straw. This is the new one. So this is the K-hub I was talking about. See if I can move that ring light so you get less shine. It's not really helping, is it? There we go. That should be good. Okay, so this is the back of my printer we're looking at right now. There's the exhaust vent that we're all used to. This is the old version of the K-hub. It's just currently screwed to the extrusions. It's there, it works, it's doing what it needs to for me, and it's very practical. What I need to do is just quickly catch up on text. Jose's here. Hello, Jose. Sorry, I've been sidetracked by just actually concentrating for a few minutes. CAN bus sucks. Dude, don't even talk to me. UART should not be a thing. No, UART is actually good. UART is actually good. UART is stable. UART is noise resistant. People constantly insisting on using USB for stuff that it was never designed for is the problem. I am just coloring in those Wago connectors so that they're really obvious which is the positive and which is the negative. You probably can't quite make it out on the screen, but there we go. Now, the topology inside this is just all of these Wago ports are connected in parallel. So me swapping where that plug goes in makes no difference at all. As long as I get it the right polarity. Now, these are the next thing I want to achieve. I want to be able to more reliably cable manage all these wires down the back of my printer. So I printed out a bunch of these. These are available on printables. I'll post a link to them and cite the designer. But basically they're screw on. And you can screw them down and it holds all your cables all nice and neat. And you can undo them again, which is what makes them so attractive. They have a screw hole in the bottom of them, but I'm planning, for my purposes for now at least, to use VHB. But I just need to find out which is the right dimension VHB. That one. Yeah, that's the narrower one. Luke, do you have drawers and drawers full of VHB tape like everybody, like me? Now, can somebody do me a favor and check on the likes to viewer ratio, please? Let's make sure everybody's fulfilling their part of the social contract. If I'm up at this time in the morning, everybody needs to like my stream for me, please. One. $21 for 21. Nice. Thanks, guys. So like somebody mentioned, Jose, you've not been around for a while, but hi. Subject to my kids not making me sick and my kids not being exceedingly sick and costing me too much sleep, I stream at this time pretty much every week. And the thumbnail I used this week, it's not my usual koala. It had me in it, just to see if it gets a little bit more viewership. Just as an experiment. I may start putting me in the thumbs more and printers in the thumbs more, or I might swap back to the koala. It just depends what sort of reaction it gets. You've been busy with stuff. How does Phil beat you in viewer? Well, I would watch more of Alex's streams if they weren't always at bedtime. It's like invariably I'm just putting my head on the pillow and I get a notification saying Alex is going to go live soon. And I never get to make it to Lee Marie streams at the moment either, because they always stream in the middle of the night my time. I kind of usually get to, one moment. I usually get to Steve's because just the timing works for my, I've usually been up and working on printers at that time. That's all going in the bin, that's all going in the bin. Okay, so let's put some of this cable management into place while I'm chatting. Alex streams all over the map. Yeah, that doesn't help either. And I try and cruise into Captain Kern's streams when I can, and Luke's streams when I can. Now these cable management doohickeys, for lack of a better word, come in multiple. Let's do this nice and neat. It's just a convenient spacer so I can do them all approximately the right spacing from the side of the printer so they end up in a straight line. These cable management clamps come in multiple different widths. So like the inside of the printer with the Cat5 cable, this 5mm one would work, but you can do these in 4, 3, and I think it's 3 to 8mm in 0.5mm steps that the files are provided in. So there we go. Sorry, I know there's a bit of a reflection of the blue of my screen here. There's not a lot I can do about it. I opted in this case to go for the 5mm because that should allow me to keep a couple of these all in the same, a couple of wires all in the same run. That is the LED wire. So that's going to have to be routed differently anyway. I might even replace that with some skinnier stuff. And this one I'm going to have to do by eye because the panel clip's going to be in the way otherwise. Actually, there we go. Look at that. Phil's actually taking care about what he's doing with this stuff. So that can go in there. There's enough slack in that USB cable for it to go in there too. And because it's constant DC in the power, it's not going to do any interfering. Get out of the way of the camera, Phil. Now, if this works on a medium-term basis, what I might do is actually even move all these wires into a sleeve and then put them back in the clamp. But for now, that's better. It's 5 a.m. Okay, so that's there and that's there. Where we got sidetracked. We were supposed to be fitting the new buffer. Printed part, there we go. Now, the original Big Tree Tech plastic part actually has the whole bottom part on it for the exhaust fan and stuff, which I had no want or need for. So that goes that way around. And that goes that way. I think. It's supposed to go that way. I have to work that out in a moment. That's right. Taking the top panel off sucks because I still have the box turtle stuff on the top. I'm not saying the box turtle stuff sucks. I'm saying it sucks for access what I'm trying to do. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can I slide it? I can slide it. Awesome. I don't need to actually take them off. Which is better for you guys because you don't have to stand around sit around watching me do it. Right. The internal cover plate. What did I do with it? It's red. It should be really obvious. There it is. It's still on the wires, Phil. Still on the wires. That goes that way, which means I need to swap that wire out of there. And into there. That's not right. That needs to be pushed through. A minute. That's not even the right cable. That's not the one that goes in here, Phil. That one is. Sorry, guys. Just remembering how to do all this is sometimes a chore. And that goes there and there. That rotates that way. And it all hopefully fits here. There. That's better. So let's rotate this around a little bit so you can see a little bit more of what I'm doing. I'm going to need some M3/8s from memory. Let's go with some LDO blackenized ones. Mostly for Jose, if he's still here. Hi, Jose. We're going to need the 2.5mm driver. Screw one is in place. Not quite lined up properly. That's better. So some of you may have noticed that red cover plate is a bit chewed up and dog-eared. The reason is I ended up having to modify it. That's not lining up. That screw too short, or am I just not getting it lined up properly? That's better. I ended up having to do a modification for the beta testing to try and work out what was going wrong with the buffer. I ended up rotating it 180 degrees, which did alleviate some of the issues I was having. So that's all in place. But I do need to print a new cover at some stage, which I'll get to this week probably. I think next week we are going to continue on with doing what we're doing. There's still no updates on when Index is going to be shipped. And that was kind of the content I'd been banking on doing for a while. So that's all in place. That's all in place. Now, that is a CAN bus connectivity. That needs to run back to the U2C. Now this one, we do need to try and run separate to the USB because this can interfere with the USB. Now, more electrical fun stuff. Can you guys see? Maybe. Yep. Okay, so if you're ever in a situation where you have to run potentially high noise cables next to each other, try and cross them at 90 degrees like this. If you can cross them at 90 degrees, the amount of transfer of noise is going to be minimal because effectively the wires are being antennas. And if the wires, if they're running like this, there's lots and lots of potential for the interference to be transferred across. If they're running like that, there's a lot less chance of interference passing because the waveforms are 90 degrees to each other, so there's going to be less interaction, and just like there's physically less crossover here. So I've not explained that particularly well, but hopefully you get what I'm trying to say. I'm just looking for a convenient spacer to make them all lined up and pretty. Needs to be about that thickness, so not wide enough. The rulers aren't wide enough. That's about the right width. Not, maybe a little bit too wide. What if I did it like that? That'll work. Now, I only printed 5 of these cable management thingies. So there's not going to be a full matching set all the way down. But I can print more this week, ready for next week. Now I've actually got to use them, and I think they're actually working for me. One. I'll be able to see, yeah, you'll be able to see the other end. Bring that with me. That's easily to hand. Just peeling the VHB tape, backing off. That didn't go on square. I've not pressed on it, so we might, if we're careful, be able to gently lever it off and adjust it. There we go. That's better. I got a little bit too much VHB tape there. So just quickly grab my scalpel. There we go. Much cleaner. It's nice being able to get all the way around the printer. You know, after all that, I actually used the wrong direction on the cardboard box. But I'm actually not too worried about it. That spacing is nice. Now, alas, poor Yorick, I know him well. Alas, I have to still run this through the same entry hole in the skirt. There's nothing I can do about that. But the amount of time they spend together is relatively minimal, so I'm going to roll with it. And that CAN bus is reconnected. And I'm just going to cable tie that to the inside of the skirts. Up there. So rotating it around so we can all see. The nice thing about this is it's a lot like Steve's Lazy Susan, except it can take full-size printers on it. Speaking of Lazy Susans, while I remember, LTX Designs, who is a long-time friend of the channel, is looking at doing some custom Lazy Susans with laser etching and all sorts of other pretty stuff on them. So if you're interested, hit him up in chat or via Discord DM. I'm not sure if he has a website or not. If you're interested, and I'm sure he will be able to give you more information. Again, I'm not looking necessarily for the super prettiest solution. I'm looking for the one that keeps the cables managed and out of the way more than pretty. So that's the other reason for not cutting that cable off, is we're probably going to end up moving the CAN bus to the connected to the pad 5 at some stage. So having it tucked up out of the way there is convenient for now. So the network cable's in place and ready to go. Now, just to explain to you why there's this huge cavernous empty area here. Up until recently on this machine, I had a whole bunch of 60-volt drivers in place, and that 60-volt power supply was there. Can't talk about the 60-volt drivers other than to say they were 60-volt drivers because the company I'm testing them for said I'm not allowed to talk about it. I asked. I was going to tell you guys, but they wouldn't give permission. So 60-volt step sticks are the awesome. So that's the power for the pad 5. That's the MCU connection for the octopus. So let's plug that in to there. That needs a spot to live. I'm going to have to work that out. maybe I'll print a DIN rail clip for some cable management. Put a DIN rail clip in there and there to cable tie things to. That might work. What do you guys reckon? How do I see through the panels? They're so frosted. I need to clean them, but what I really, really need to do is get myself some new panels. And I've been looking around. It's just finding the cache, dude. Honestly, after parting with all that cache for Index, and starting to get set up to do some more of the electronic side of things, I just haven't got there. I haven't got the cache to be able to just splash out panels yet. That I've just noticed has the filament broken off. So that one needs replacing. Can you put what you're working on in the mainstream view? What do you mean, some text or? Oh, sorry. Side cam. So that's better. Sorry, RJ. Is that better? I should have done that before. Bye, JPP. Just quickly catching up on chat. Jeff wishes he had more money for more toys. Yeah, sorry. I know I've been trying to read more chat and I've been trying to keep up with you guys, but I also have a lot of stuff to get done because, yeah, I know there's probably going to be a couple of betas coming very shortly. So, in principle, the replacement pad 5 mount, when I get it done, will be here. I need to print new skirts to match the right length, which is easy enough done. I just haven't got there yet. And then that will make the front of the printer all pretty again. So that's nice. So let's work this out, guys. Gonna need 1, 2. Let's write this up on my whiteboard. So Type-C tail, we did. LAN cable, we did. Oh, you can't see it for the lamp. So hopefully you can read this sort of vaguely. Second fan we did. K-hub is mounted. Pad 5 V2 is halfway there. So the Raspberry Pi 4 is out, isn't it? Yes, it's out. In cable bases, let's rearrange all this. Now, Pad 5 V2 mount is needed. We need, let's just say, 8 cable bases. We need 2 times DIN rail clips. For those bases, and making sure just got a few around. What else do we need to do? We need to do the LED wire. It'll make sense next week when we get there, guys, but the LED needs to be swapped out. It's currently using big, fat, huge gauge cable that's completely unnecessary. So I'm going to swap that out for something a bit more sensible. We've done the buffer, so that's in place. Just quickly wandering around the printer. We've done the network connection. We just need to test the network connection. Even though I'm going to probably use it on Wi-Fi anyway, I like having that ability. So PAD5 v2 mount, cable bases, DIN clips, LED wire, test the network stuff, and PAD5 v2 mount will remind me to do that bit. So we have gone a lot longer than I normally do. Let's swap back to just me. I'm not cleaning the panels, RJ, because there's no point. They don't come clean. They are gooed to oblivion, and I have tried everything that everybody recommends. The only thing that will probably clean them is a polish, and to sit and polish them without ruining them is just difficult. So I'm probably going to replace them. So let's just have a look. That means I don't have time to spend with the Delta and it needs to come to your house? No, because if anybody's getting it, it's Jeff. And also, I quite like it, and I'm probably going to print more of those cable bases actually on it, because it goes brrr when it prints. And I've now got it dialed in, so it will actually print these screw threads quite nicely. So I have been Phil. I have been the Down Under Maker. We've done a crap load of wiring tidy up, and it's starting to get to the point where it's back to sensible. And it could do with more work, but I'm not aiming for the stars here. I'm just aiming to make it functional. Jeff says, I may need to hit you up on where to wire my 24-volt LED into the Octopus so I can make a macro. That is dead easy on the Octopus. You can run it off a fan port, or you can run it off the one of the hot end outputs. If that's not particularly difficult, Jeff, we can just hit me up at any stage and we can talk about that. So I've been Phil. I have been the Down Under Maker. We've tidied up a whole bunch of wiring. Hopefully it'll be a bit more interactive next week and we'll actually get some printing done. But thank you all for joining me. It's time for me to hop on out of here. Bye, guys.